I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoops, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Yeah, take a step back for the ones who can't.
I don't know why I always dance at the beginning of this, of each episode. I always tell myself, next time I'm not going to dance, but I always do because I love the song. Welcome. Hello there, travelers. Welcome back to another episode of Destination Manifestation. If you're watching the video version of the show, I was like this close to not recording the video version this week, but then I'm like, we're on episode 54. I don't want to not do something I've done every other time. But as you can see behind me, the studio is in a state of disarray. We are this close to finishing so that I can use the new studio setup for the podcast and social media. But right now they're not quite there yet. So bear with me, under construction. Right now, it's currently March 2025, if you're listening to this in real time, okay? But you would think today, based on today's episode, it might as well be October 31st, Halloween day, because we are diving into the topic of fear. Dun, dun, dun. Ooh, spooky. And I don't mean fear in terms of the Dracula or ghost sort of way of thinking about it. We're going to talk about how fear can keep us from our manifestations. That's what we're diving into here today. Because it seems that fear is the thing that fouls the most people up when it comes to manifestation. There's so much fear. I mean, we think of it as a very fun process, but there can be so much fear that comes up along this journey. And I just kind of want to help you pop those little balloons of fear as they come up so you can move along and get closer and closer to your destination manifestation. And really, fear can take on so many different forms. There's no way we'd be able to cover all the many fears that you could encounter. Of course, when we think of fear, we might think of fear more in terms of the phobic sense of the word, right? I deal with phobias quite frequently as, a hypnotherapist. Even a few episodes, we actually dove into one particular phobia that a lot of you guys had been writing in and telling me that you were having, which was the fear of flying. So if you have that, tune back a few episodes and we'll definitely help you manifest new travels and new experiences and memories. But when it comes to manifestation, especially as we think about any kind of manifestation one might have, fears tend to take on a much more cerebral type flavor, right? Fears tend to be a lot more rooted in limiting beliefs that come up and the fears that are associated with them. So today, what we're going to do is, since we can't talk about every single fear that ever exists, although my show will certainly aim to help you do that, we're going to focus on the top 3 fears that you might face on your manifestation journey. And more importantly, what do you do about them so that you can actually release those pesky little fears and tap into the endless possibilities that are truly available to you? Sound good? So let's dive in with fear number 1. And let me just say, these fears are in no particular order. I'm just going to list them off, okay, as we talk about them. The first fear is the fear that it's not working out, okay? Otherwise, we can consider this fear is known as doubt or unworthiness. So many people fear that no matter what they might do, that manifesting just simply won't work for them. That those dreams that they have on their heart will just be impossible for someone like them. And only other people can do that. Only Beyonce can have that career. Only this person can be a big author, not me, right? This is where the fear stems from. And that they're going to spend all this time, they're going to spend all this money, all this energy, and yet somehow they'll be left with Nada. Zilch. Zero. And I will say, this is a very convenient excuse. Our brain loves these little, it's a nice facade for our brain to hide behind, I guess I should say. Because what is actually going on with this fear underneath the surface are a lot of deep-seated beliefs about your worthiness. Okay. Perhaps you might have encountered some sort of situation in your life where you really wanted something. You did your best. You gave it your all. And just like we're taught as little kids, just try your best, little Johnny. And all of a sudden you tried your best, but it didn't happen. And you kind of felt like, well, I was lied to. My parents, my teachers, all these people told me growing up, if I do my best, I'll get what I want. And yet you didn't get it. And so in that moment, it created this automatic pattern in your brain that said, if I want something, I can't have it, or I'm not good enough, or any number of limiting beliefs that might have sprouted up based on that situation. Now, these past disappointments may have caught you by surprise, right? They might have even hurt a bit or even a lot. And so it's natural, and we can understand and we can have compassion for your brain that, might not want to feel that sense of disappointment again. You went through it once, it was painful as hell, and now you don't want to do it again. So you don't want to put yourself out there. You don't want to try. Now, a scarcity mindset will convince us that there's not enough. There's not enough money. There's not enough time. There's not enough energy, whatever it might be, right? That it can only happen, but it can only happen to certain people can have that manifestation. And you just happen to not be one of them. You may worry that you're doing something wrong, like you don't know how to manifest, or you're manifesting wrong, or that there's something inherently flawed with you that means that you're not lucky enough to have what you desire. And what's just like hits me is kind of so interesting about all this? It's interesting because we all tend to think that we are the exception to the rule. And it's totally your ego speaking when you feel this way. And, when you think you're kind of some little magical star in the universe that's entirely different from anyone else, we tend to think that we're so special that universal laws, and I mean, look at that word, universal. That means applied to everyone. The laws of the universe, like the law of attraction, like the law of assumption, that help us manifest, that you somehow think that they don't apply to you, that you're some exception. And I just laugh because when we view it from that way, we're like, why would we be any different? It's universal. It applies to all. And I feel like I've been thinking about this more and more lately because I've been reading some parenting books here lately. Y'all know my current manifestation is growing my family. And so you see this kind of mentality come up a lot in parenting as well, right? Parents, especially American parents, tend to think that their child is different and more unique and special than all the rest. I'll read in these parenting books like, my child has sleep issues. These techniques don't work for my precious little Sammy, and this parent can't fathom the fact that perhaps their child is human like all the other little children, and just some basic parenting principles would also apply to them too. And maybe they just accidentally taught their child some bad sleep habits, and that's okay. And it's funny because there's a lot more of us that think that we are different or that we're the exception to the rule than the number of people who actually are different or the exception of the rule. I would love to know the actual stats on that. How many people think they're the exception to the rule versus how many truly are, right? We tend to think that we're the only ones, that we're more inclined to think it's not working. The manifestation isn't working. The manifesting process isn't working. We're more inclined to think that rather than we aren't working that process in the correct way. And yet, it would behoove us so much more to recognize, okay, there's something more for me to learn here. I know I'm just like everyone else. I'm human. And if other humans can manifest, I can manifest too. So what about the way I'm going about this? What beliefs do I hold? What's keeping me from this manifestation? That would be a much more productive question to ask. Now, the lucky thing is with this fear, if you fear your manifestation isn't working, it's a really easy fix. Or I should say, it's a simple fix. Whether or not it's easy or not to you depends on how much resistance you have. But you've already told me the belief that you've been thinking about it, right? The belief is it's not working. And when you believe it's not working, guess what? You are absolutely right. Claps. Kudos. You're the best manifester in the whole dang world. It won't work for you when you believe that. So there's your problem. You have to believe it works and that it is working in order for it to work. And I know that can be so confusing and such a catch-22. It's one of the biggest catch-22s. It's one of the reasons why you can't ever be hypnotized against your will. I share this with all one-on-one clients that I work with. You cannot be hypnotized against your will. The moment you don't want to be hypnotized any longer, you'll snap right out of it. You'll be out of it. It reminds me of the first time I was ever hypnotized back in high school. This hypnotist came and spoke to our psychology class. It was at a summer camp. And I happened to be someone selected from the audience, probably because I'm highly suggestible, which is a good thing. It shows that you have a strong creative mind. But I was selected from the audience and he hypnotized me so that I wouldn't be able to move my arms. My arms were like stuck down to my sides. And then he gently took some white erase board markers, right? And he just kind of gently threw them at me and they landed in my lap. So he threw the first marker and I couldn't move my arms. And I couldn't believe it. Like, whoa, this is actually working. Like, I physically can't move my arms. This is crazy. He threw the second marker at me. Same thing. I was like, oh, wow. I can't catch it. Like, I physically can't catch it. That was nuts. But by this point, after the second marker, I was like, okay, how long is this going to last? I happen to like my arms, right? I was like, this is kind of scary. I kind of feel paralyzed here. I've never not been able to use a part of my body, especially something as important as your arms. And so by time he threw that third marker at me, guess what? My arms moved and I caught it. Okay. My brain had decided in that moment, all right, that was all fun and games, very cute, but like joke's over. I want to move my arms. Like this isn't fun anymore. I don't want to do this, right? And then, wouldn't you know, my brain went into self-preservation mode and I didn't want to be hypnotized anymore. So that's one of the reasons why I very rarely, without a very strong vetting process, I very rarely work with children. I very rarely work with teens, or I don't offer gift cards or anything like that when it comes to hypnosis, because the person who is getting the hypnosis should be the one who is paying for it, the one who is signing up for it. Like I said, there's some exceptions to the rule, and I'll do like a very intensive vetting and interviewing process because I understand not everyone has the monetary means to sign up for hypnosis, even though they might really want it. I have a few clients where a family member will pay for them, but it's because that person has demonstrated, hey, I really want this, and just somebody else is helping me, subsidize it. But I'm very careful about that because I know that if somebody just were to gift you some hypnosis randomly and you didn't really want it, it's not going to work for you. And nor should you be doing it because you can only be hypnotized if you want to. And it's only going to work for you if you want it to work because you only manifest what you believe, right? Manifestation works the exact same way. We get what we believe. And that can be amazing. We can create miracles. We can create things at the very edges of our imagination, things that we once never thought was possible. We can then believe is possible and create. But that also means if you believe it will work, or I should say it this way, if you don't believe it will work, then you will manifest it not working. Okay? The universe is non-discerning. And And just because you believe that it isn't working and therefore that's what you're manifesting, it doesn't mean that you're a bad manifester. It just means that you've been so good at manifesting what you don't want because you've been believing what doesn't serve you. And so I think a lot of people think, oh, I suck at manifesting. I can't manifest anything. And I'm like, no, actually, you're a fantastic manifester. All you think all day long is that you suck. And so therefore it isn't coming because that's exactly what you're manifesting. So I want to remind you, you aren't trapped here. Okay. You have free will. You're the creator. We forget that we're the creator sometimes, and I want you to remember it. So, since you're the creator, you get to decide. And whatever you decide, you create. So, just decide that it's working. I know that sounds so simple, and it really truly can be that simple if you allow it to be. You can make that non negotiable decision now. And if you truly could do that, like if you could just sit here and be like, I'm deciding that this manifestation is for me. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm making that decision now. I'm going to write down the date. I'm going to remember where I am. Like, no shifting from this. I'm deciding. If you truly could do that, you wouldn't need a single other manifestation technique or episode of this show at all. Like, that's it. That's manifestation at its core. The thing is that oftentimes we need these techniques. We need to do subconscious reprogramming. We need to remove blocks because there are things that are making that difficult for us to make that decision. But if you can make the decision, make it right now. Save yourself so much time and energy and just make the decision. One of these ways that can help you make this decision is to look for evidence of why it's working. I have a whole episode on that. I think it's called the number one manifestation technique or something like that. I can't really recall. I'll link it in the show notes. It's a whole episode that teaches you how to look for evidence of your manifestation and why it's working. Tell yourself, even if you can't see anything in your 3D physical environment just yet that demonstrates that it's working, tell yourself that it's working behind the scenes and that you can't wait to become more aware of it in your 3D reality. And better yet, go where it is working. So what do I mean by that? You're spending too much time looking in your present 3D reality and using that as the measurement of it working. But that's such a limited view. That's like reading only the first page of a book and thinking, this book doesn't make sense. It isn't a good book. It's like, well, you only read one page. What do you expect? Right? That's what it's like when we only look to our 3D reality. So go look where it's working because there is a place where your manifestation is working 100% of the time, where it already exists. And that place is in your inner mind. Okay? Don't trap yourself purely in your 3D environment. These 5 senses that we have, see it, taste it, touch it, smell it. What's the one? Hear it. Am I thinking of anything else? Right? It's just kind of like 5 crayons and a 100-piece crayon set. Okay? You remember those like art kits? Remember those when you were a kid? I love my big box of crayons. The 100-piece one, it had like all the skin colors and it had, all the like, sort of random, like really beautiful jewel tones and all those, right? It had all the fun colors, that 100-piece set. But stop deciding that you're only going to use blue, green, yellow, orange, red to define your reality. That's so limited. There are so many more colors, so many more senses, so much more realness that exists beyond that. So go where it's working. And what I mean by that is you need to visualize how it's working and what it looks like when it's working. And better yet, what it feels like, the emotions you feel when it's working. You do all of that in your inner mind. This kind of reminds me what I do with my clients that I see for claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is the fear of small and tight spaces, right? It's just another fear. We have manifestation fears. You might have fears of physical spaces, right? But with claustrophobia, these clients are scared of being stuck in these spaces. And so I like to remind them that if you were to just sit in a room for 4 or 5 hours, right? Chances are at some point in time, you're going to leave the room via your imagination. Okay. You might spend some of the time outside the room. You might spend most of your time outside the room. You can do this in so many different ways, right? Anytime you daydream, you've left that room. Anytime you're wrapped up in a really engaging conversation with someone else, you leave. You might be in a really absorbing activity, such as reading or listening to music, which, by the way, most of these examples, I think every example but the conversation one, are times where we actually are entering the natural theta brainwave state, which happens to be the same brainwave state we enter when we're in a state of hypnosis, right? So when you leave the room in your imagination, you're going into a natural state of hypnosis anyways. Same when you watch TV. When you watch TV, you totally forget about your surroundings. Or I love that feeling. I don't go to movies and movie theaters very often anymore, but I love that feeling of when you're in a movie theater and the credits start rolling and all of a sudden you come back and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot I wasn't in the movie." Like I was so immersed in the movie and here I am. Like, how did I get here? Where was I for the past couple hours, right? So oftentimes, like when I'm on a long flight, for example, I can forget about being on that plane to an extent because I have infinite time. I have infinite space, you know, in my own mind to venture off into. And so in this way, no one is ever really confined to an airplane. They're never confined to a bus or a car or a train, any sort of mode of transportation, any sort of room or space they may be in. Think of it this way. When you go to sleep at night, you travel beyond mere time and geographical location, right? You're not in your bed the entire time. You don't spend 8 hours aware that you're in your bed. Where do you go when you dream? You have within your mind the space of an entire universe within which where you can travel. I mean, think nothing is off limits in your dreams. You could be on outer space. You can be. I had a dream last night that my sister was this demon doll that was chasing me. Oh, it was very scary. I had 2 nightmares last night. Yeah. I wouldn't have picked to go there, but I went there. It wasn't in my bedroom. I think I was on the side of a highway or something. Like I went someplace else, right? And when you awaken hours later, only then do you remember where you actually physically in your 3D body are. So I like to tell these clients the way to relax in a confined space is to remember that you have all the space of the universe contained and available to you through your mind. Okay, so in that way, there's infinite space. You are not confined because you are not just 3D physicalness. Okay, and you can access that inner space at any time. You can go anywhere you choose. And what you know, the very exact same thing applies to you and your manifestations too. Maybe even more so, because we're more used to the idea of manifestations existing in energy before they exist in the physical realm anyways. You have infinite time and space within your inner mind to explore the reality of your manifestations. Let's look at this word, reality, reality, reality. It's where it's real. So go there. Go where it's real already. Become familiar with it. Know its realness. I mean, there's really zero reason to stay stuck in your 3D reality 100% of the time. When I think of people who are stuck in their 3D reality 100% of the time, they are usually very unhappy. They're, I don't know. They're usually the people who hate to say voted for Trump. They're the people who are led by fear. They're the people who think the only way I can have anything is that if other people don't have it. It's so ego driven. Okay. Now, of course, when you do physical things like eat, when you walk, when you do other 3D human actions, yeah, you're going to be here. Okay. That's part of being human. I'm not saying escape reality 100% of the time either. We want to find that balance. But your dreams don't have to live here, not just yet. Okay, your dreams will always have to live in your inner mind first. And so what your job then becomes is to go into your inner mind, find the realness of those dreams, and then bring them back here through your action into your 3D reality for you to enjoy in this plane. Okay, but it's only by seeing it work there can it then work here. You get what I mean? Now, that's how your brain learns the realness of your desires. And so once you spend enough time in a state of hypnosis, visualizing that divine orchestration of your desires, that's how you literally train your brain to believe, yeah, this is working for me. I see it every day. I know it's realness every day. Like, you're building up your belief. It's easy to believe that it's working for you when you spend time each and every day watching it work for you when you're in your hypnosis sessions. And so, what you know, when you think at that thought that it is working for you, and you think that at the deepest subconscious level, it becomes a deep subconscious belief, that's when it starts to become reflected into your 3D reality. Okay? That's how you manifest it. That's the best workaround trick I can describe to you. That's how you get your mind on board to believe that, yes, it is working for me. Everything is always working out for me. And when you believe that, that's when you end up manifesting it in your 3D reality. Boom, right? Now, a very famous example of this whole process, right? If you've ever studied manifestation for any length of time, I'm sure you've heard this example. But a famous example of all of this is the actor Jim Carrey. Okay. He's been very vocal throughout his career in sharing how he's done this, right? In the early 1990s, before he was famous, Jim Carrey, he wrote himself a check for $10 million. Okay. And he dated it for Thanksgiving 1995. He kept that check in his wallet, tucked in his wallet, right? He created that evidence for him to look at in his 3D reality of it working for him. And then he visualized himself receiving that amount for a movie role. He also drove up to the street that's in LA called Mulholland Drive. He would drive up Mulholland Drive, he'd park, he'd imagine himself as a successful actor. So what he did is he went where it was working. Now, I don't mean Mulholland Drive, although that seemed to be a very inspirational place for him. So it was easier for him to visualize there, easier for him to believe there, right? Looking over LA and the whole city. But he went in his mind where it was working. He saw himself as that actor. And both, he went both in his inner mind and he happened to pair it with an inspiring 3D reality place, a place where he could go to feel inspired, which, hey, that's a good idea too. But by 1994, that's when he ended up landing the leading role in the movie Dumb and Dumber, for which he was paid exactly, ding, 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 you guessed it, $10 million. Isn't that nuts? His visualization practice aligned his mindset. It aligned his energy with the reality of what he wanted to create. And so he went where it was working. He went where it was working. He found it. He felt the realness of it, and he brought it back into his 3D reality. Okay. So I think you guys got a good handle of that fear, don't you? I think so. I believe in you. Let's tackle fear number 2 now, okay? Fear number 2 is the fear of success and the inevitable change that comes along with it. Okay? Because it is inevitable. You go from not success to success, there will be change. And if you fear change, then you're not going to be able to manifest this change in your life. Surprisingly, people often fear actually getting what they want. It's actually quite common. I know I've definitely struggled with some of those fears before. I swear, and it's ridiculous to look back at it, but I swear having a fear, myself personally, of having to do taxes on a successful business is what kept me from becoming an entrepreneur for at least 8 years. Like, I'm not kidding you. That was the fear. And it's so silly to think back on it now, but it was true. I was so scared that if I made too much money, then, oh my gosh, my taxes would get so complicated and I don't really understand it and I can't do that. So I just like don't want to deal with it. I don't want to learn it. I don't want to know how to deal with it. And so I kept myself in this cycle of failure and not making any money worth anything in order to avoid that change of it, or in order to avoid having to learn these new skills. Well, now I have a lovely bookkeeper, an amazing tax accountant. I don't have that fear anymore. I have a very successful business that makes money. So you might subconsciously worry about how your life might change when you become a vibrational match to what you desire, who you'll need to be. That can be a worry too. Maybe the extra responsibilities that you'll have to take on, the time or the energy it might take out of you. I know that was definitely a belief I had to heal after leaving a very demanding marketing consultant role to become a hypnotherapist. I was afraid. I'd worked at so many small companies, and it was crazy. I kind of fell into this pattern in my market research career before I worked at Mattel or Instagram. But before that, I worked for these small marketing consultant companies that I worked very closely with the owner of the company. And I handled a lot. I won't say I ran their companies, but I had a front row seat to how companies were run. And I played a big role in that. And I saw a lot of these entrepreneurs running themselves into the ground and just exhausting themselves and missing kids' sports functions and, working late nights and evenings and not being there. And it just it instilled this belief in me, oh my gosh, to run a successful business, I have to give up everything. I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be tired. I'm going to be sick. I'm just going to have to give up everything to be successful. And that was a belief that I held for a long time. And I had to overcome that belief and realize, no, I just happened to be working for some people who weren't all that effective at setting boundaries or at getting the resources and support that they needed in order to grow. I just happened to not work for the best entrepreneurs. And I had to realize that so that I could say, hey, I can have my own company. And not only that, but I can have my own company and I can ensure that that company and that job supports the life I want to live. It gives me more time, more freedom, more flexibility than I had when I worked for other people. And that has been the exact truth. If I want to take a day off, I don't have to ask anyone. I just block my calendar. No more sessions that day, And I had to overcome this fear that being an entrepreneur meant running yourselves to the ground. It was just, unfortunately, two bad examples of people who had done that, who had in a way chosen that. But that wasn't something I was going to choose. So I happen to work with a lot of entrepreneurs that say that they want millions, right? But then they keep their businesses small because, like me, they maybe feared working too many hours, or they feared needing to hire more employees, or whatever that growth may bring. And so you need to dislodge those beliefs in order to reach that level of success and to bring that change. Another fear of success or fear of change element might be that you worry about how others perceive you. If you were to actually create what you desire, you might fear their judgment. I'll tell you this story. I lost one of my best friends. I mean, she's not actually lost, thank God, but we're no longer close. She was a best friend of mine for 14 years. We drifted apart when I became a hypnotherapist because she had gone to school. She was trained as kind of like an old school traditional therapist, and she really didn't see the value in something cutting edge like hypnotherapy, which was, or at least the way that hypnotherapy is used today and as a healing modality. Hypnotherapy has been around forever, but in the way that we now understand it neuroscientifically, that's not what she learned in school. It wasn't what she valued. And it was such a shame. She just really didn't see the value. And every time I talked to her, she poo-pooed on my business. And it felt so bad. It felt awful to have these big, amazing dreams, to finally identify my passion, to want to share my life with her, of which my business was such a huge component of my life, still is. And to have her tell me that I couldn't or shouldn't do it to make light of it, to look down on it, to say these little snide comments, to when I would want to open up to her and express, hey, being an entrepreneur is hard, or I'm running into this, I'm running into that. She's like, you should just give up. Like she would reinforce my fear of failure. And that didn't feel good. Now, let me tell you this. It wasn't just one comment, and it wasn't just that drove that relationship apart. So, we're not just ditching people left and right on things like that. But after some time, I sort of consistently began to realize that every time I spoke to her, I felt way worse about myself, my passions. And I eventually decided that the kind of people that I want to surround myself with are the people that are going to support me, and I had to make peace with the idea that I think our the ways we view things had just simply grown apart. So another fear that you might have with success is your fear of your own ability to maintain that success once you get there. Can you keep it up? Maybe you did it once, but can you keep doing it again and again and again? This fear is often linked to what we consider imposter syndrome. Okay. You think that the version of you who created this manifestation of yours is not the same version of you who will stick around once it actually is yours. And therefore, you're going to feel like you created this thing that you can't sustain. Maybe you can muster up the power or the ability to get signed to that major literary agency or the talent agency, but then you anticipate that it's all going to fly out the window when it comes time to actually write the book or to act the part or whatever it may be. So you don't actually trust that it's you that's doing this. The fear of success and change is oftentimes linked to self-sabotage. Once we think we're on the brink of that, we'll do something that thwarts it so we don't actually have to change. It's often linked to making a problem out of something good, which is your success. Believing that it was a fluke somehow, that it was just kind of a one-time thing, that it can't be maintained. And when you believe that it can't be maintained, what do you end up manifesting? The inability to maintain it. You prove yourself right. And when you feel this way, it's simply because your mind is resisting that it's having to step outside its comfort zone. It's having to step outside what is familiar. Your mind has not built up enough familiarity with this new state of being, with this new achievement of yours, of this new level that you reached. Okay. So you think, if you aren't familiar with it, you think, oh my gosh, everything's going to fall apart if I change. I'm not ready. But let me tell you, this is the mind just lying to you. Okay, fear, F-E-A-R, it stands for false evidence appearing real. That's what it is. And I want to remind you why that fear is false, because it's tied to another element or sort of qualm that many of us have about manifestation, but that is actually there in order to protect us. And that is divine timing. You know how annoying it is when you really want to manifest something, but it just seems like it's taking forever to make it into your 3D reality? We oftentimes want to speed that process up. We want it to go quicker. We want the thing sooner. But there is a really valid reason why there's a gap between when you first have that desire versus your 3D realization of it. You want to know why that gap exists? You have to become the person who can handle it. You have to become someone who can embody and handle your success. And that could take a moment. It could take a month, a day, a year, decades even in some cases, right? You have to learn and grow and shift and become someone new on that manifesting journey. You do. And that becoming process is so vital, okay? It can feel like growing pains. It can be annoying sometimes in the moment, but it's vital because then it reminds you that you are someone that can hold this success. You are someone that can hold this success. Now, and how you know this is because you spent that last moment, day, month, year, decade, becoming the person who could maintain your success. So I want you to remember that when it comes, you know you're already that version of you because you can hold it, you can maintain it, you're ready, because you wouldn't have manifested it if you weren't. If you weren't ready to maintain it, it wouldn't have come to you. You'd still be waiting. You'd still be wondering where your manifestation is. You'd still be learning. You'd still be growing. I think we've all kind of heard the saying, right? Like, God doesn't give you anything you can't handle. Well, the universe doesn't give you your manifestations if you aren't ready to handle them. That once you manifested it, that shows you that you're ready. That's that's the barometer. So if you manifested it, it means that you can handle it. Full stop. No more debate. And when you fear your own success, I want you to remember and realize that it's simply your imagination just running riot. Okay. It's your imagination going on a crazy binger. It's a misuse of your imagination. That's all. That's all that fear is. It's the same powerful capability that you had that you used to imagine your success. Remember the other fear we talked about, going where it's working? You use your imagination for that. It's now being misfired kind of in the wrong direction when you fear your own success. So, what do you need to do? You just need to harness the power of your imagination. You need to refocus it, not over here, but back in the direction of where you're creating, because you never stop creating. It's the beautiful thing about life. You never stop creating. You're always creating. Once you manifest becoming a New York Times bestselling author, well, you're going to want to manifest doing it for your next book and the next book and the book tour and the course that goes along with it and all the things, right? You're always creating. So use your imagination for good. Use your imagination to know that you've reached that level, because once you reach it, it's yours. Now you might be thinking, well, Brittany, aren't there people that manifest things and then they lose them? Even people who have lost what they manifested, and then oftentimes they regain it back in a different way. It's really crazy. There are plenty of stories of people who amassed like crazy amounts of wealth. I actually just read, what was it called? The Magic Mind or Mind Magic. It's by Dr. James Doty. I'll link to it in the show notes. I read this amazing book, and he was one of those people, and where he manifested insane amounts of wealth. I can't remember what his first job was. I can't really remember. I think it was like .com or Bubble or something like that. He lost it all. He ended up going bankrupt. He lost his house. He lost his family. I mean, he really hit kind of a rock bottom. And then he ended up manifesting it all back by, going into a completely different career field. Like, it's crazy. It's because wealth isn't some finite thing. The people who do this never really actually lose the real sort of magic sauce here, which is their ability to manifest wealth. Dr. James Doty, it wasn't the wealth that defined his ability. It was his ability to manifest wealth. So if he manifested it once, he can manifest it again. And that's exactly what he did. So use your imagination to create what it is that you want. And I want you to aim your imagination at what you want. Okay? Your imagination is so freaking powerful. It's not some kiddie part of you that you only use to play dress up or color pictures when you were 4 years old, right? I've always said, like, big imagination needs a rebrand, right? We need to call in whoever did those like Got Milk commercials in the 90s and like come over here and help imagination out, right? It needs a rebrand. Your imagination is so powerful. It's not something to just sort of haphazardly, mess around with. I kind of like to think of it like a magic wand, right? You wouldn't just swing that baby around willy-nilly all over the place. You'd be, who knows what kind of damage you might be doing. No, you want to be intentional about where you direct it, okay? Which leads us to fear number 3. It's the fear of losing control, the fear of the unknown. Okay. And I see this fear come up quite a bit with my one-on-one hypnotherapy and coaching clients, especially those that are in the process of releasing anxiety. Okay. Manifestation is it just inherently requires you to surrender. It's a surrendering process. You have to surrender to the process. You have to surrender to the timing. It's called co-creation for a reason. It means that the universe has a role in all this too. It has a job here, and so do you, but it's not completely 100% up to you. So you have to let go of your attachment to how it's going to come to be or how it's going to come about. And I know because I'm a recovering type A planner. I know all you type A planner people out there. I know that this can feel scary. It can. And, you might ask yourself, what do you mean I can't plan out every little single detail exactly as I want? Like, this can be a hard concept for us to wrap our heads around. And oftentimes, it's because a lot of those same people, you might have a job right now that really praises you for that ability. I just had dinner last night with a good friend of mine who's a producer, and he is, his company operates so amazingly because he is so good at planning out all the details and thinking 8 steps ahead. And that's a big part of his sort of 3D, reality. And he's praised for that. But when it comes to the manifesting world, you got to loosen your grip. And that could be hard for some of us. And this could feel terrifying to you if you're one of those kind of people that that crave certainty and control. The fear of stepping into the unknown can cause you to feel a lot of resistance, which can then cause you to cling on to those old patterns, because those old patterns, they might suck, they might limit you, they might be keeping you from manifesting, but dang it, they're safe and familiar. And your brain just wants to keep you safe and in the familiar zone, and it's willing to forego all your manifestations in order to keep you there. But I want to remind you that just because something currently feels safe and familiar doesn't mean that it's the best thing for you. It truly doesn't. You can train your brain for anything to feel familiar to you eventually. And the only reason why you're clinging on to what you know is because you've made the unknown be this big, bad, ugly thing. You did that. There's only one thing that we know for certain about the unknown. I'll share it with you. It's that it's unknown. It's not known. It's unfamiliar. The one thing we know is that we don't know anything about it. So to say, oh, it's some big, bad, ugly thing, that's you saying that you know what it is. And I don't know if you got some memo I didn't get, but the unknown, that's what it is. It means we don't know. And to think that you do know is incorrect. So what's to say that the unknown isn't the most beautiful thing that could ever exist? We don't know. Who's to say that the unknown isn't actually infinite possibility, where it's the place where all potentialities exist? All your manifestations just served to you on a silver platter. What if the unknown was that? It could be that too. It could. We don't know. Dr. Joe Dispenza, I love him. He teaches this a lot. It was one of the biggest aha moments that I personally had from attending his week-long advanced retreat last August. Okay? Stop knowing or thinking you know or acting like you know that the unknown is bad. Because if you knew it was bad, it would be known. It would inherently change. Also, when you feel this fear of losing control, okay, when you're just gripping onto control with all your might and you're fearing that you're going to lose it, I want you to tune into your body, because your body's going to tell you a lot then, okay? I want you to notice the sensations that come up for you. And let's play a quick game when it comes to this, okay? I'm going to describe to you a scene for you to visualize right now, all right? There's a woman. She's sitting down. Her heart rate is increasing. Her breathing is quickening. Okay. She's gripping a little bit tighter. Her senses are on high alert. She's becoming more aware of her surroundings. Let me ask you, what are you picturing right now? What's happening there? Now, Some of you might have pictured someone starting to have a panic attack. Okay. Others of you, if you have a dirty mind, might have pictured something else. Okay. Although the sitting down part, I don't really know how that works. But, anyways, right? Others of you, if you were correct in this little game, might have pictured her on a roller coaster. That's what I was thinking. And the funny thing is, any of these examples I just gave, and probably others, could all be true. It's because fear and excitement are the same psychological feelings. They include the same physical sensations. It's just with one, the panic attack, you have a story in your mind saying, oh my gosh, this is a bad thing, and it's stemming from some sort of worry. And with the other, you have a story in your mind that says, wee, this is fun, exciting, right? And if you don't happen to like roller coasters, think of something else that you find really thrilling and exciting. It elicits the same sort of sensations. I mean, gosh, it might even be watching your favorite TV show, right? And then the episode ends on this amazing cliffhanger. And, I don't know what gets you all hot and bothered. Maybe that's it, right? I know when I finish like an episode of Severance, that show on Apple TV, oh my God, it's so good. I'll just look over at my husband and just like my mouth's open and I'm just like, oh my God, that was nuts. Like, what's going to happen? And we talk about all our theories and like, I am feeling the same physical sensations I would feel with fear, only it's excitement. Okay. Fear and excitement are simply two sides of the very same physical coin. When we talk about the physical sensations of it, psychologically, what's the difference there is that it's a matter of the story that we're telling ourselves. So, why not let the unknown be exciting for you? Play around with that next time you notice yourself feeling the physical sensations of fear. Why not change them to excitement? Oh, a great example of this I just thought of, is a haunted house. Some people are just giddy. They love haunted houses. They get scared, but it just feels thrilling. It feels exciting. They're having fun. Other people, like myself, have a story going on in their head that's like, get me out of here. This is insane. I don't like this, right? Same physical sensations, one's fear, one's excitement. So allow the unknown to be exciting. If you're going to pick a story, pick the exciting one, especially when it comes to your manifestations, because there is zero excitement in the familiar, right? Familiar is boring, it's bland, it's predictable. So just allow yourself to be surprised and delighted. It's part of the flavor of life and manifesting. And it's the key ingredient to enjoying your journey as you're manifesting your desire too. Now, you might have experienced or even currently experience one of these fears that we reviewed here today, none of the fears, maybe all of the fears. If you're like me, I know I've certainly felt each and every one, at least at some point in my life on this journey. And if you have, I want you to know that you're not alone. Okay. These fears are actually a very normal sort of initiation into the manifestation process. They're going to come up for you. But now that you're aware of them and how they operate, okay, they're here on your journey for you to overcome. Okay. Now that you know, the ball's in your court. And you can use the tools that we discussed here today, of course, but some of these fears might require a little bit more deliberate subconscious reprogramming to really shift them in the ways that we discussed. So if you're kind of like, okay, I feel sort of at a loss about how I go about doing that, well, that's why I created the Manifested Me Vault, okay? The Manifested Me Vault is a full subscription library of manifestation-specific hypnotherapy audios, okay? This is the how. This is the piece that actually reprograms the subconscious mind. This is how you shift beliefs. And these audios are designed to help you release all these fears at the subconscious level, okay? We talked about today about going where it works. Well, there's hypnosis audios that help you create your destiny as you sleep. There's a session in there that's going to help you attract miracles. There's a session in there that will help you attract what you want. If you fear that your manifestations aren't working, Well, there's a session that's going to help you manifest anything you desire while you sleep, or a session that's going to help you identify what action steps you need to take. That's vital for it to work. Maybe if you have money related goals, we have a session that's going to help you rid yourself of lack mentality and manifest abundance. I have a session on manifesting money as you sleep. We have a session on manifesting wealth, prosperity, and abundance. If you have a health goal, there's a law of attraction session that will help you manifest health. If you have a relationship or love related goal, you can do a session on becoming a relationship magnet. We talked a lot about becoming the person who can handle your success. Well, there are hypnosis sessions that we're going to help you tap into that version of you. We call it manifested you. There's sessions that are going to help you tap into your purpose, your fulfillment, your success. There's even a session that can help you find your life's purpose if you don't know what it is already. Okay. There's a session that can help you live a heart-centered life from a place of love. If you want to release these fears, or really sort of any other fears too, there is a session that can help you let go of negative attachments, whatever they might be. There's another session that's going to help you tune into your higher self and your spirit guides that will obviously help you do that too. If you have any kind of manifestation, that's what I love about it, is it doesn't only, of course, there's some audios that relate to just health or just money or just, relationships. But really, most of these audios can relate to any sort of manifestation you might have, which I'm sure you do have since you are listening to this show. There is an audio that will help you realize your vision. And that's what I wanted. Like, that's what I felt called to create, is that there was this place you could go that had everything you needed, and not just learning about it. I mean, we love to learn about it. That's what you do in this podcast. But I want you to actually have a place to go that gives you the tools to literally change. Like, I don't want to just talk about this anymore. I want to do it. And that's what the Manifested Me Vault is, right? And everything I just described is just like a small little sampling of what's in store for you in the Manifested Me Vault. So let me kind of give you guys the real-time update. As of this episode, I'm in the process of recording over 10 hours of these hypnosis sessions. That's going to be included in the initial launch of the vault. What's great about the vault is that we're going to add new sessions continually to it. So as you join, it's just going to keep getting better and better and better. My hope, what I'm manifesting right now, is that we'll be launching and it will be available to you next month. So I'm aiming for April, okay? Be sure to continue listening to the show so you can get all the latest updates. Or if you want to be one of the first ones to access that vault as soon as it's open, go to BrittanyHoops.com/audio and sign up for my email list, okay? Not only are you going to be alerted the moment that the vault opens, but it's also going to give you a little sneak peek into the hypnotherapy audios that are in the vault. And there's one that you'll be able to download, listen to, and you can start applying to your manifestations right now, okay? I swear, if you downloaded this audio, and if you're a longtime listener of the show, you probably already have. But if you downloaded this audio and you listen to it every day up until the vault opens, by time you join the vault, you're already going to be on your second or your third manifestation by then. Like, things are going to be manifesting for you so quickly. You'll be riding that positive momentum in ways that you would have never even dreamed were possible for you before. I actually just got a message the other day from someone who's downloaded the audio. I've had people that downloaded, or people who have manifested jobs using the audio. I got a message just yesterday from someone saying that they manifested in a completely new friend group using the audio. Like, there's so many amazing things that you can manifest simply just by this free audio that I have at BrittanyHoops.com/audio. So download that free Vault hypnotherapy audio there and just get a jump start on your manifestations today. And I want you, more than anything, okay, to enjoy this journey, travelers. And I'll catch you in the next episode.
Existed.